Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at a modernized PlayStation controller that also works with the Nintendo Switch, and that's the Defender wireless gamepad from Retro Fighters. And real quick, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on everything happening with the channel. And with that out of the way, let's take a look. So we've got the Defender gamepad here in kind of the classic PlayStation gray. And I've reviewed some Retro Fighter stuff in the past with the Duelist gamepad, the kind of GameCube themed Pro controller that was aimed at Smash Brothers players, and also the Brawler 64, which is a modernized Nintendo 64 controller. And there's also a PC Switch version of that as well. And I wasn't sure at first if I would cover the Defender since it really is primarily intended for use with PlayStation consoles, but since this can be used on the Switch as well, I figured why not? Let's take a look at it. But I will say right out of the gate that I actually don't currently own an original PlayStation console. And when I got these controllers in the mail, I was actually thinking, well, I should just go out and get an original PlayStation. And after looking into it a little bit, I realized that there is a earlier model that has a CD drive that's kind of sought after from audiophiles because the audio quality is actually quite good for a CD player of the time. When I went looking at some of my retro shops, I wasn't able to find one of those original models. They all had the later serial number, so it wasn't really worth it to me to pick one up. If I am going to buy one, I want to get one with the better drive. But I was able to go to my local video game shop, shout out Luna Video Games, and was able to hook up the controller to a PlayStation console they had there and try it out just a little bit. But the majority of my testing of the Defender has been with the Nintendo Switch. So keep that in mind as I'm going through this stuff here. But a lot of those opinions will obviously make sense when using it along with a PlayStation as well. And also, full disclosure, Retro Fighters did send me these Defender controllers for free, but all opinions of it are my own. So with that out of the way, let's take a look here. Let's flip over the box and take a look at what we've got written on the back here. And we see here we've got a range of around 30 feet. So really that's the big advantage if you were using this with a PlayStation, and you only have wired controllers. This is going to allow you to get a good distance away from the console. And then going through some of the features here, we've got 2.4 gigahertz wireless, pressure sensitive buttons, which would be important to some of those old PlayStation games, vibration feedback, and then we've got the compatibility here with PS1, PS2, PS3, the PlayStation Classic, the Switch, and PC. And let's see. Yeah, and then in the box, you are getting both the USB receiver as well as the analog receiver, which is really nice, which kind of lets you use this with a broad range of devices right out of the box. So I'll get the box off to the side here. And here is the Defender gamepad in that classic PlayStation gray. And overall, I'd say the shape is pretty reminiscent of a Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Nice, comfortable, ergonomic shape. I do think right out of the box, I would say that this is one of the best feeling controllers that Retro Fighters has put together. It feels really solid. I've really liked all their past controllers as well, but the build quality just seems a little bit improved here. Really solid feeling. There is a slight texture on the back here. And I don't know, whatever plastic they used, it doesn't feel quite as glossy or shiny as some of the older controllers of theirs that I've used that maybe makes it feel a little cheaper. This kind of has a slightly soft feeling, but yeah, anyway, it's a really nice feeling controller. You've got your triangle, circle, cross, and square buttons here for the face buttons in homage to PlayStation, of course. And then your analog sticks, which feel really good. Then you have your start and select here, turbo and clear. And then looking at the top, we've got our LNR, L2, R2, and the capture button right here if you are intending to use this with the Switch. It's a little bit out of the way, but I do appreciate that they've included that there for kind of full functionality. And then we've also got this auto button on the top here, which according to the manual, this is a turbo button. You press this along with whatever button you want turbo assigned to, but unlike turbo, you won't need to hold the button down. So you can just set this to auto press a button that you're not pressing, which is a nice little included feature there. So yeah, overall, the controller feels really good. The buttons have a nice click. These feel pretty similar to me to the official Switch Pro controller, other than they're glossier. But as far as the click goes, it's a pretty similar feeling. The D-pad is nice too. It's pretty large and decent click. It's maybe a little bit softer than I'd prefer, but not by much. Feels pretty good overall. A little bit of a rocker in the center there. I always prefer that those would be a little taller, but I think, in most cases, this will totally get the job done. And then we've got a home button here as well. And yeah, as far as the overall feel goes, I was really impressed with this controller. Definitely feels like one of the nicest controllers Retro Fighters has made to date. All the buttons and sticks feel great. I especially like the caps on these. It's a really nice rubber, nice grip. The tension on the sticks feels really good. The shoulder buttons feel nice as well. Nice click on the L and R. And then you have the analog triggers, the L2 and R2 with a bit more travel. And it is really cool, to feel something so modern feeling for really a retro console. So now let's take a peek at everything that's included in the box. So we've got the manual here with just some quick start instructions depending on what device you're using it with. Got our USB A to C charging cable, and on the back of the box it says you can expect around 10 hours of battery life. Doesn't seem like they're using the highest capacity battery in here, but that's totally serviceable. And then this little box here has both the receivers inside. So here's the USB dongle. If you do want to use this with the Switch, since this is 2.4 gigahertz and not Bluetooth, you will need to use this dongle plugged into the dock. So this isn't something you can use in handheld mode unless you're running a USB A to C adapter plugged into the bottom of the Switch. You'll be using this dongle for PC and PS3 as well. Oh, and the PlayStation Classic, since that takes USB too. And then we've got the analog dongle here, which I think looks pretty nice. The Retro Fighters logo here and an LED indicator. And this just plugs into the controller port on either your original PlayStation or PlayStation 2. And as far as pairing goes, whether you're using the analog receiver or the USB, really works the same way. Once these are plugged in, they'll start looking for the device, and then you can just press the home button here. See those LED lights start flashing, and then it pairs just like that. Super simple, super straightforward. I haven't had any issues pairing it either when using it with the Switch at home or trying it out on that PlayStation at Luna. And one cool thing about using this with especially the original PlayStation is the controller will kind of auto detect whether or not the game has analog support, because with the original PlayStation there was the original controller that didn't even feature analog sticks, and then that came out after. So there are some games that don't have analog support, but luckily it seems like this is just pretty plug and play depending on if the game supports it or not. The LED indicator will change when you're paired with the analog receiver here. So if the game doesn't support analog, you'll just have one LED at the top lit up, but if it is an analog supported game, the two top lights will stay lit and then you'll know you're in analog mode. So I think that's really nice. But yeah, if you have a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 in your retro console setup, I think this is a really awesome modernized controller to kind of bring your setup up to date and allow you to get a good distance from the TV. And I think my only criticisms of this controller come from using it primarily with the Switch, which is honestly not the main thing it's intended for, so some of these nitpicks are totally understandable. But when you are using this with the Switch, you're not going to have NFC support for Amiibo, and there aren't any motion controls included here. There is a blurb on Retro Fighter's site about them creating a PS3 only version of the Defender, which will be Bluetooth and will include the 6-axis motion controls. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are planning to get this for primarily use with PS3, probably be wise to hold off a little bit. But then the other things I've noticed when using this with the Switch, because the L2 and R2 are analog triggers and the Switch doesn't support that except for a couple games that you have to use the GameCube adapter with, the L2 and R2 are pretty sensitive. It seems like I don't have to press the trigger all that far for it to register as a button press on the Switch. So I was playing this with some Mario Kart, trying out the new Booster Course Pass tracks, and noticed if I rest my fingers on the triggers here and I'm not careful, sometimes I'd accidentally press one of the triggers and hop or go into a slide in the wrong direction. Didn't happen all the time, and once I realized how sensitive those were on the Switch, I kind of adjusted and it wasn't much of an issue. And then the other thing I noticed is that the vibration feedback is very strong, and I think that's intentional. It really reminds me of how strong rumble was back on the Nintendo 64 and original PlayStation. This feels true to form, but when playing it with Mario Kart, it was a little too intense for my liking. It just felt a little over the top. But again, these are really mild criticisms, just something to keep in mind that if you were getting this to use it primarily with the Switch, I don't know that I'd recommend it for that use case. But otherwise, I've come away really impressed with the build quality of the Defender. I think Retro Fighters just keep getting better and better at what they're making. I know they have a GameCube controller in the works, so I'll be excited to see how that feels with how nice the Defender here feels. And I think that's going to do it. I'll of course leave a link to the Defender in the description down below if you'd like to check it out for yourself. This is currently listed on Retro Fighter's site for $44.99, and for the functionality here and everything included and the overall build quality, I think that's a totally reasonable price. I also have an affiliate code with Retro Fighters, which is just code Nintendo, and you can use that to get 10% off your order. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like on your way out and also consider subscribing. And until the next video, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.